Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. It's Aaron again. I'm back with another episode. Obviously, I've been kind of going a little bit off the cuff with different things and putting mini episodes, I guess. We're going to continue with that trend in this one, and we are going to look at some more horror movie sequels that were never made but have been rumored, talked about. Some of these may not be true and maybe just online rumors, but I just wanted to dive into them anyway. I just think it's a fun conversation piece, and sometimes it's fun to talk about rumors and not really know where we were at with the production side of it. So some of the first things I'm going to talk about is the Friday the 13th franchise. So obviously the series has taken a lot of strange and wacky routes over its installments. From Jason being in space to a lot of different things. But most of them didn't seem to stray too far from the original idea. So in 2009, after the reboot, the series got held up in developmental hell basically, and is still stuck there to this day, which is 2021 now, so it's a long time. Unfortunately, we've even seen the game fall apart, and it's a disaster really, and it's a pity. So the immediate follow-up to the 2009 movie was going to give us something that we hadn't seen before, which was Jason killing people during winter. It would have been a huge scenic departure for the franchise, because it was defined obviously by a summer camp. But I think it would have been a welcome change of pace, and especially after seeing Never Hike in the Snow, which is a fantastic short film, I guess, set within the Friday the 13th universe. So everybody should check that out. I think it's actually on YouTube for free if you search Womp Stomp Films. And they also have an original part which is called Never Hike Alone, which is also fantastic. So that fell apart, apparently. And then another approach was considered, which I had heard a lot about, and I think it was legit, which was found footage. So Paramount actually wanted to jump on the bandwagon after seeing how much money some of these ultra-low budget movies were making at the box office. But it also died on the vine, because by the time they got around to it, that whole found footage aesthetic was basically on its way out, and it was a dying breed. So from here then, the studio thought the best way to go for the franchise would have been to completely reinvigorate the property by bringing it to TV. So although the idea was kind of a big conceptual leap, Crystal Lake was going to be a real place where a killer named Jason Voorhees murdered people. But then a sleazy filmmaker made a movie based on it, and it became a cultural phenomenon, basically. It kind of sounds like a rip-off in a way of like something like New Nightmare. But, look, it kind of sounds like it could have been interesting, but it stalled out, and it just hasn't been talked about ever since, I don't think. So the last attempt at re-energizing it that I know of recently, just from online research, to me sounded like the best one. So it would have been a period piece set between 1975 and 1980, and we would have looked at Jason's upbringing with his mother and his father. So this would have been the first time that we would have got to see Jason's father, which is a character I think that was almost included in Jason Lives. So after a new spin on Jason's drowning, Jason would have been telepathically connected to his mother and aided her in getting revenge for his supposed death. After her demise, the film would jump forward 5 years and have Jason seeking retribution for his mom's murder. Apparently this take was going to be influenced by the tone of It Follows. But look, I don't think we're ever going to see this version, and unfortunately we're just in a deadlock now, and I'm not sure when we're ever going to get a new Friday the 13th movie. But yeah, I just thought some of those were cool and interesting ideas. My favourite, probably, honestly, what I would like to see now is somebody let the guys over at Womp Stomp take over and do something. I love what they've been doing so far anyway, and the fact that they're able to do it without any, huge interference. But I think, honestly, if any studio, once this gets figured out, doesn't look at what they're doing and think these are the guys we need, like the passion behind the character of Jason and the whole setup, like you're making a big mistake, I think, in my opinion. But yeah. So look, let's move on. So from here, let's move on to another slasher series, and another one who kind of sits up there atop the pile with Friday the 13th, and that is A Nightmare on Elm Street. And it's a take, apparently, that Peter Jackson had. So Freddy Krueger has never really left our dreams after becoming the boogeyman with Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street. Robert Englund's portrayal of the Springwood slasher kept audiences coming back for more and more, but by the time the sixth installment was in development, New Line Cinema felt like it was time to bury the claw and sweater for good. A number of different writers were involved in pitching stories that would act as a swan song for Freddy, but one young talent rose above the others and nearly got the chance to kill Krueger, and that person was Peter Jackson. So the New Zealander had made a splash with his over-the-top films like Bad Taste, Meet the Feebles, and New Line was interested, I think, in seeing what he could bring to the table. So Jackson's take was a very self-aware one. Titled The Dream Lover, it set up the idea that the teenagers of Springwood knew about Freddy and were no longer afraid of him, which kind of reminds me of the whole Freddy vs. Jason thing. In fact, it was something of a pastime for them to take sleeping pills and enter the dream world where they would beat up Freddy. That I'm not so sold on, but okay. Because he was no longer feeding off of the town's fear, he had become a decrepit old man that was slowly dying. Being so forthright and with some meta commentary about how Freddy was perceived as a pop culture icon definitely calls to mind what Wes Craven did with the villain in New Nightmare. Naturally, one of the teens screws up during a visit to the dream world and Freddy was able to kill him. This revitalizes the town's fear and makes Freddy powerful once again. A la Freddy vs. Jason, I think some of these things may have been pulled from that idea. Part of the plot would have involved Freddy getting one of these teens' fathers stuck in a coma, and the teen would have then had to voluntarily enter the dream world to save his dad. Jackson definitely wanted to explore more of the dream world and not just make it an extension of Freddy's powers. This kind of bigger world building definitely lines up with where Jackson's filmography would be headed, which I think is great. I don't think we've ever really... Look, we get in and out of the dreamscape, but I don't think we've ever really focused on it too much, and I think that would have been very interesting. And if we do happen to get another Nightmare on Elm Street, I think we should look at that route maybe and kind of go down that way and see where that takes us. But unfortunately, New Line decided to go a less daring route with Freddy's Dead, which is basically a comedy, and it flopped and it was just awful. But it was that failed project that led to Jackson getting in the door with New Line and, eventually gave us some great films there. So yeah, next we're going to move on to Halloween. This would have been before Jason Blum, Danny McBride, David Gordon Green came back. So over the franchise's 40-year history, a number of potential sequels were tossed around. There was even a plan to abandon Michael Myers and turn the series into standalone tales, which we've heard multiple times. This was supposed to kick off with the Season of the Witch, but the initial backlash to that movie meant the producers had to resurrect Michael, which is why we got Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. So in an attempted return to form with Halloween H2O, the series just dovetailed into ridiculousness with Halloween Resurrection, which I personally love, and then as far as box office and getting movies made, Michael was just gone again. But this is until screenwriters Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, the duo behind Feast, saw 4 through the final chapter, decided that they wanted to have a go at resurrecting Michael in a movie that they titled Halloween Returns. So their idea centered around ignoring everything after Halloween 2 and refocusing the story on 2 teenagers whose parents were connected to Myers' original rampage. One teen was the son of one of Myers' victims, and the other was the daughter of a police officer who had become obsessed with the Myers case. When Myers is put on death row, the the two hatch a plan to sneak into his execution to witness his death. Now, I'm not sure how you do that, but okay, fair enough. Who would have guessed something goes wrong with the execution and Michael escapes? Which I would imagine would be a huge scene where he's killing everybody in sight. And it sounds like it might have been a good way to kind of recalibrate the whole mythology to line up with the first movies. But the studio didn't want any part in it really, and it didn't fit what they wanted to create a new era of Halloween movies, I think. But there was talks of what I talked about in a previous mini episode of Michael Myers and Pinhead crossing over and different things, and it just kind of went crazy from there, and I'm not really sure. And then obviously we got our Blumhouse Halloween, which I do like, but there's things I don't like in it also. From there we're going to move on to Candyman. I'm not going to cover the Candyman versus Leprechaun thing because I've talked about that in a previous episode, but there is a few other things apparently that Candyman was involved in. So, I mean, of all the 90s horror movies, Candyman has definitely proven to be one of the most resilient, and he's very iconic, I think, in my opinion. Tony Todd's portrayal as him in the 3 entries were fantastic, but then it's just like the franchise just went into hibernation and never re-emerged, which I'm very, very surprised by. But even though he stayed on the shelf, from looking online, apparently there was quite a few times that people tried to bring him back and do a thing with him. So the most straightforward sequel was going to take place at a New England all-girls college and be centered around a professor who discovered that she was a descendant of Candyman. This lines up with the other 2 sequels, which both involved women who were distant relatives of Candyman. If rumours are to be believed, it was going to be a bigger production than the previous films, with a strategy to really push Candyman 4 as a more prestigious sequel. A more fascinating sequel that would have been director Bernard Rose's proposed follow-up to the original. So he wanted to take inspiration from Clive Barker's original short stories. Candyman was based on Barker's The Forbidden and adapt the Midnight Meat Train, but replace the main character with Candyman. It would have relocated the action to London and involved Candyman being part of a demonic conspiracy that involved the supernatural founders of the city. And then, you know, you've got your usual things like Candyman and Leprechaun and all that stuff that I don't really care to talk about, but yeah, there's some interesting ones there I didn't know about with that. But again, yeah, it was just another short episode, guys. I hope you enjoy this. It's just me rambling. It's one of those things, it's as I'm recording this, it's late at night. I just got this itch to record something for you guys, and I don't know if anybody will like this format. If you don't, let me know. If you do, let me know. If you've heard of any other supposed crossovers or unmade movies that you might be interested in hearing me talk about, or just want to chat about through message or whatever, definitely hit me up. Like always, you can find everything I do on www.ClassHorrorCast.com. Support me over on Patreon at patreon.com/firstclasshorror. And if anybody just wants to chat movies, or you know, is looking for a suggestion or wants to give me a suggestion or some feedback, hit me up on Instagram at firstclasshorror. That's where I'm most active. And as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.